And there we go. Greetings, booktubers. Welcome to my half-ass booktube channel. I had to drag my backside down here to do a video because basically lazy. Anyway, I finished reading a book, an ebook, the image of which I'll put on the right here when I go to edit this. It's called A Thing Immortal by Barry K. Gregory. And I would call it A Tale of the Weird West. It's touted as a Western horror fantasy story. And to be honest, it has the feel, excuse me, a little bit of book damage there. It has the feel of a fantasy in some points, and a feel of horror in others. The violence is, particularly graphic. It's a Western. So, like a Western, it's very terse and sometimes bloody, and sometimes riddled with unprepared for, unsuspected violence. Just very good story. They keep switching. You have your characters. Let's see, the Manhunter, the Gunslinger, the Wing Thief. Who else? I think that might be the Wing Thief. I think that might be all of them. There's only 3 main characters in it. Yeah, the Wing Thief, the Gunslinger, and the Manhunter. Yeah, okay, there's only 3. And throughout the entire book, it keeps switching back and forth between these 3, slowly building up this expansive story across the frontier. It heavily depends upon Native American mythology, and which I know nothing about. So I don't know if it was accurate or not, but you have a Native American Blackwing. I don't even know which nation he belongs to. He's able to switch his consciousness, his spirit, as they call it, his spirit with birds, and he can cover a lot of distance and do some scouting ahead that way. You've got the Gunslinger, Hamish, I forget his last name, but he's lived for 300 years. And I won't tell you why, but has to do with his making friends with one of the Native American gods, that kind of thing. And he just takes it in stride. He's been alive for 300 years, and it's no big thing for him. It's whatever. You eventually find out why. And of course, you have the Manhunter, who's a mulatto, half black, half white. Free man. He's a free man, so he's not a slave. I don't know if this takes place before or after the Emancipation Proclamation, but it's enough to be a problem when he shows up against bigoted white people, and it's like, wait a minute, what are you doing here? He's, I'm a freed man. I'm a freeman, so screw you. Can't blame him either. But he's a bounty hunter, and of course, this book covers their 3 adventures as they're basically like chess pieces being moved around by these 2 conflicting forces in Native American mythology. And in that way, it's a lot like Lord of the Rings, I would have to say. But it's a very, very entertaining read. It kept me turning the pages, virtually speaking. And I would highly recommend it if you like Westerns with a lot of mystical bent folded into it. That's why I call it a weird Western, because that's what a weird Western is, basically. You have a Western with some supernatural or fantastic horror element mixed in with it. And I like Westerns, but hey, if we can mix horror into it, hell, it's even better. Also wanted to discuss something else today. I've been rediscovering my X-Men comics as written by Chris Claremont. This here being one of the best storylines he's ever done with Chris. Let me see if I can pull up the. There we go. Chris Claremont and John Byrne on pencils, and Terry Austin inker. I just happened to stumble across this when I was a kid at this mom and pop store on Conant Street, where I used to live, and I knew nothing about the X-Men. I knew nothing about, but the covers looked interesting. I mean, hell, if you thought that cover was interesting, check out this one. Boom! And I think I maybe read like 2 issues of the X-Men before this, and I just happened to pick them up in order. I wasn't quite a collector yet, where I followed a particular storyline. If I saw them, I picked them up, and that was pretty much it. The hardcore collector bug would kick in later, but I actually seek out storylines and follow them. But as a kid, I had no idea what I was reading, and it was amazing. And the storyline basically goes like this: in the future, in Marvel's future, mutants are there's a bigotry going on towards mutants. They're people born with something different about them, whether it's like superpowers or some deformity or both or what have you. Mutants are mistrusted. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had been mining that particular disenfranchisement meme since the 60s. It was one of the early 60s creations. And it basically dealt with, being the other, not being the other, being shunned by society. And mutants were Marvel's allegory towards, persecution of the minority. And of course, Chris Claremont jumped on it in the mid-70s. He took over the book. It was kind of flagging in sales, and he took over the book and introduced this brand new set of characters from all over the world. You have Storm, Aurora Storm Monroe. She's a weather witch. You had Wolverine, the Canadian operative who had claws. He could extend his claws through housings from his adamantium skeleton. I mean, you know this if you've ever seen any one of the movies. He had a Banshee from Ireland, had sonic powers. Who else? You had a Native American one. I should know this now. He's not in here, is he? He didn't last long anyway, but unfortunately I forgot his name. I want to say he was John Proudstar. I believe that was his native name. It wasn't even long enough for me to figure out his powers, unfortunately. But yeah, they basically showed up, and Chris Claremont Len Wein was doing the writing, and then Chris Claremont took over, and then just took the title from strength to strength. And I know I've left out other people there. Oh yeah, Nightcrawler, German circus acrobat who looks kind of like a demon, and he could teleport all over the place in a cloud of brimstone smelling smoke. Bam! He would just, again, if you ever want to see X-Men, was it the second X-Men movie? Was it X-Men United? I believe it was X-Men United. I should know this stuff. I'm a comic geek. I'm looking up there. X-Men. Well, the reason why I'm mentioning movies is because Days of Future Past got turned into an X-Men movie. Of course, it doesn't bear any resemblance to the original text because there's different characters in it and everything else. But as I sat there reading this story as a kid, knowing nothing about the X-Men, it had a very dark dystopian feel. It's a dark future where the Sentinels are roaming around. The Sentinels are created to hunt down mutants, and eventually they did their job too well. They created concentration camps and everything. That's where we join our heroes in the future. And I swear to God, when I first saw Terminator years later, like 2 years later, after 3 years, no, make it 4 years after the story was published, it felt very much like Days of Future Past, complete with the time travel. They send Kitty Pryde back in time because her younger self hadn't come up with any mental defenses. Sent her back to try and prevent the assassination of Senator Kelly. And his death was going to touch off a panic that would create the Sentinels and thus create that dystopian future, which was about to be nuked completely because Sentinels were going to march on the rest of the world to control the mutant population overseas. And everyone overseas was like, no, you're not. If you do that, we're pressing the button. So that's what Kitty Pryde was trying to prevent. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is this story was so popular that other titles took it up. Other titles took it up. The Fantastic Four touched upon it later on because Franklin Richards is in it. Franklin Richards is the son of Reed Richards and Sue Storm, a mutant himself. He was featured in Days of Future Past. And then Wolverine gets a limited series to explore those other themes brought up, lightly touched on Days of Future Past. Then Rachel Summers, the son of Cyclops' daughter, comes back to the past too to see if she can change the future, and she's got psychic powers like her mom, Phoenix, and on and so forth. It's such a good story, you can't screw it up, pretty much. And over the years, it got added to by Chris Claremont himself, a Wolverine miniseries like that, and of course, it's just a fan favorite. It's just a fan favorite that people keep coming to again and again and again. And each time you go back to that dark future, you learn something else about it. And last year, Marvel just put out a 4-part miniseries called Days of Future Past Doomsday. And it kind of fills in how we got to that situation and how Kitty goes back in time to prevent things from happening. And she comes back to her body after the mission is supposedly finished in the past. And it folds in all the stuff we've learned since then. And it's just a great tale. Like I said, there's very little to this. I mean, the first 2-parter is perfect. It's note perfect, but it's such a great story, you can't screw it up. So I would highly recommend you pick this up if you're interested in learning about the X-Men. Even if you like the movie, which I need to see again. I need to see. This really got me wanting to see the X-Men films again. So I just have to get it past my husband. And yeah. That's pretty much it. That's all I have. I don't know how much further I can go with this phone, so I'm just going to call it quits here. I have limited memory going on. So take care of yourselves. This is the Scholar Gentleman signing off. Have a good day and happy reading.